what's your priority list? Because Epstein, 9/11.
Our first investigation will be announced, but it's going to be covering on a thorough investigation into the John F. Kennedy assassination. And I can tell you, based on what I've been seeing so far, the initial hearing that was actually held here in Congress was actually faulty in the single bullet theory. I believe that there were two shooters, and we should be finding more information as we are able to gain access into the SCIF, hopefully before the files are actually released to the public.
Conspiracy theory into conspiracy fact is a lexicon, an idiom developed here on this show and in these spaces. In our own way, Neil Oliver, Lara Logan and myself have all benefited from the changing perspective on conspiracy theories, whether it's UFOs, the truth behind 9/11, the murder of JFK, the origins of COVID, the efficacy of vaccines, or there's these new revelations around assassinations. Lara, thank you very much for joining us, albeit late. What did you... welcome to the show. Well done for finding the right angle. I'm looking forward to seeing which one of your pets will slither out from beneath the frame over the course of our conversation. What do you think about the declassifications that are taking place and coming out of the White House right now? Is this an indication that we do have a new form of government? Can we trust them in ways that we could never trust previous administrations just based on these revelations?
It looks that way, although, you know, as my mother used to say, it ain't over till the fat lady sings. So let's see what happens over time. But what has already taken place, the actions that have already taken place, indicate that we've never seen anything like this in government before. And, you know, look at all the years, right? I mean, how much time has passed between JFK's assassination and where we are today? And yet, amazingly, we still don't have the truth. And don't you love how the FBI just magically found 14,000 pages of transcripts that they had, you know, that they didn't know were there until, you know, that only happened when their back was against the wall. And those pages have been, you know, lost for how long? So there are strong indications that this is a new age in terms of government. How long will it last? What will they do to undermine it, subvert it? We don't know yet. So maybe my dogs are not slithering in, but yelling. Honey, come
They're
here.
bounding in. They're making a dreadful racket. There's more dogs than ever before. Well, you're not so physically attractive. I'd assume you're a person that had too many pets out of sheer loneliness. And I know that Neil Oliver's house is fully seething with wolfhounds because I've been there. I've visited it in person myself. Neil, what do you make not only of the mad menagerie that houses Lara Logan, but the opening of the zoo of conspiracy? I'd long... Oh God, that's ridiculous. Get it out. I'd long believed, Neil, that if we truly knew what classified files contained, that we would become instantly disobedient. Now, something like JFK, most of us get it under control, Lara. That is out of control. That is madness. I've already got a YouTube strike. I need you to control that dog. I've always JFK. I guess most of us now know that it's not the magic bullet theory and the lone gunman theory have all been discarded. But when it comes to like 9/11 and COVID, Neil, is there a danger that this could sort of disrupt permanently our faith in all systems of government and not be seen as a kind of a mea culpa and a fresh new start by this radical and extraordinary new American government?
I would have to see something. Before I would make any kind of judgment on it. I did wonder, in fact, I just said to Trudy an hour ago, why, after all this time, are they still trailing it? You know, saying this stuff is coming. Why don't they just put it up on some kind of worldwide, you know, notice board for anybody to see?
Because they've got 1,000 lawyers in there, Neil, giving them 1,000 reasons why they can't do this.
I'm sure there are.
And they're combing through each document, and they're, you know, what they're having to do is, I think I would agree with you, just get it over with already, right? But look at the two things that have happened. One, they put Representative Annalena Luna, right, in place, and that was significant for this reason. Luna is a you know, she's a baller, right? She doesn't take any crap, and she's not owned by the system. So they've chosen someone in each of these positions. They've chosen someone who's going to speak up. Then the other thing is you've got things like the FBI coming forward saying, we just found 14,000 transcripts no one's ever seen. So now what they did when they did that, they delayed the process, because now the lawyers all have to go through the 14,000 pages and make sure that everything there is okay.
But in the case of, let's say, in the case of the John F. Kennedy and the Robert Kennedy Sr. assassinations, just to take those two, it's a lifetime since those deaths, those killings, those murders, and so nobody is left alive. That was materially involved with any of that, and the fact that they can't just lay out all of it. If you're going to say we're going to declassify this stuff and we're just going to give the people, the American people or the people of the world, everything we've got about this, you either do that or you don't. And if anything that they have to go through and redact or hold back or whatever means that it's some version of a limited hangout, or it's a slightly disingenuous fulfillment of the promise to just declassify this stuff. I can appreciate. I mean, I could be practical enough around something like 9/11 that clearly people are alive and walking around today that were party to all of that, and that I can imagine that there might be sensitivities around it, but all the way up to and including the Epstein client list and the much vaunted Diddy tapes and all of the rest of it. This constant promising of jam tomorrow. We're going to show you this. We are going to show you this soon.
Honey today, jam tomorrow.
And I can't think of any reason to take the example of the Kennedy brothers' murders. I don't believe there's any reason why they, whoever it is that's got this 14,000 pages, put it all out there. Just put it all out there and say, there it is. And if they don't do that, for me, that will be less than a fulfillment of that, dangled promise.
So what if it's not that the people who are responsible are still alive? Because obviously they're not. What if it's that the organization that did it, i.e. the CIA, is still alive? And that's what I agree with you.
But they're also promising all that stuff, all that big headline stuff about draining swamps, all that stuff about clearing out the corruption. Now, I'm as aware as the next vaguely sentient human being about the complexities of that and the likely consequences of doing any of that. I can see that. But if you say we're going to tell you the truth, we're going to do the reveal, and you can make of it what you will. You either do that or you don't. And
absolutely.
Like I say, at the moment,
I think
it's just
coming.
like
1775. Some companies stand for diversity quotas and ESG scores. 1775 coffee stands for bold flavour, real quality, and the kind of work ethic that would get half of DC fired on day one. If your morning fuel should actually taste like coffee and not like the liquid equivalent of Biden's farts, you're in the right place. Dark roast hits harder than a Trump tariff. Medium roast keeps it bold without the bitterness. And Vitality Mushroom Blend fuels the fight with lion's mane, cordyceps and reishi. Real energy, no synthetic garbage, straight from Bill Gates' lab. Yeah, real coffee for real Americans. Like me. Weak coffee is for the weak, and at Rumble, weak has never been part of the mission. No fillers, no shortcuts, and proudly backed by a platform that does not cut corners, water things down, or settle for mediocrity. For pods, whole bean, or ground coffee, head to 1775coffee.com, use the code BRAND for 15% off, and start your morning with coffee that stands for something.
I think it's coming. I could be wrong, but I tell you what they are doing is they're doing it in a way where they can't be stopped. I think that's the critical thing here is that look what we've already seen with regards to USAID, Medicare, Medicaid, and all these revelations that are coming out, right? With the Treasury. I mean, can you imagine? They had to hack into the Treasury because the Treasury wouldn't give the executive branch, to whom it reports, access to their own records. So I do agree with you, Neil, that it's time to stop with the games, and get it all out there. And but I do also say that you have to give them some credit for the actions taken so far.
All I really meant was I don't know why they trailed it again. I wouldn't have said we are going to. I would just have waited until the big reveal. There, without any kind of trailer without any kind of building up expectation. I would just have put it out there. But when it comes to the Kennedy assassination, when it comes to the killing of Jack Kennedy, if that is laid out, then I honestly don't know how. Well, I'd be very interested to watch how America, the Republic, comes to terms with it. Because if it was an inside job, then it means that Kennedy was the last American president.
You mean John, right?
That,
not Jack.
It means that everything that has happened since was the consequence of an illegitimate act.
Correct.
That was covered up.
Which is maybe why it's taking so long to
That
release.
is enormous. I don't know how you begin to get around that it has
Russell?
been an illegitimacy for the last lifetime.
How do you get around that, Russell?
Listen, Logan, don't turn up here late, adjust your camera and think
You're
you can
late every week.
You can't
Play with your
dominate
dogs.
me and Neil. We're grounded in Christ. Now, listen, I want to say that like chronology does play a significant part, but I love what Neil said about delegitimization from the murder of JFK onwards, and to the point of like the people that are left alive affected by it. It seems to me that the point of classification was always either to protect a nation from external threat or to prevent the government, the revelation of the government's true intentions and true conduct. And when you work through this list, all of which we're told we're going to get total transparency and declassification around, JFK is, which is almost a relatively vanilla conspiracy theory now. Is there anyone left who thinks that Lee Harvey Oswald, unaided, murdered JFK? I would say probably not. And then as you go through this list, 9/11, if like even 5% of what's been speculated upon is true, in fact, if it's anything other than entirely unaided, oddly Saudi-affiliated members of Al-Qaeda flew into those towers. Any additional detail before we get into the Pentagon, the disappearance of all that surveillance footage, Building 7, or ultimately, aren't conspiracy theories about the delegitimization of power? And in whatever we learn about 9/11, Epstein, UFOs, the origins of COVID and the way that COVID was handled, and some of these events are extremely recent in the cases of both COVID and the Epstein list, doesn't it amount to delegitimization so absolute that even a new and somewhat renegade, at least in terms of its presentational style, administration will be delegitimized by it? I mean, in short, if you knew everything that the government knew about extraterrestrials and UFOs and how long they've been interacting with the government, if you knew exactly what went on in 9/11 and who was involved and how it happened, not to mention the even more vanilla and likely scenario where JFK was murdered by members of the CIA because of Vietnam or his relationship with Cuba or because of his father's relationship with the mob. Like it starts to make America unmanageable. It's kind of within black academia. It's understood that you could never give reparations for slavery or in our country, the UK, you could never give reparations for colonialism because the country is intrinsically built upon that exploitation, not just the racist component of it, because each country, first of all, tyrannizes its domestic population. First and foremost, you have to do that. So isn't it like, wouldn't true and full revelation delegitimize America itself? How can you have an America if you knew what really happened on 9/11? If half of what I believe is true, what'd you say to that, Lara Logan? Lara come lately.
I say read the Constitution. I think you'll be fine. I mean, you're not wrong. It's catastrophic. There's no question about it, because it's not just the original act that you're talking about, right? I mean, the assassination is one thing, but what about the cover-up that's followed, that has now spanned decades, and, Republican and Democrat governments? And people have been asking for the truth for a very long time. And not only that, but look at the pattern that's revealed. What are the chances? You've got a lone gunman, Lee Harvey Oswald, and right before he can ever get to a court of law to tell his side of the story, lo and behold, he's assassinated, right? Well, supposedly Trump was killed by a lone, was not killed, but was, the assassination attempt was by a lone gunman. I mean, who believes that? They've used that lone gunman thing over and over and over again, and it's probably always been a lie. I mean, it was very obvious when you speak to people who know about ballistics and all the rest of it that, that guy that died on the roof in Butler, Pennsylvania, was not the only shooter at the Trump, assassination attempt. So I would say that, yes, this is catastrophic, especially when you come to the more recent, well, they're catastrophic in different ways. The JFK thing, because it shows that the intelligence services of the United States that were set up originally, born out of the Second World War, designed to protect this country from its enemies abroad, foreign enemies, Title 50, that's what governs the CIA, right? Title 50, look it up under U.S. law. They're not allowed, apart from the National Resources Division, they're not allowed to operate on U.S. soil. So when you start to look at when you have an intelligence agency that has been actively subverting and undermining the government of the United States of America, the Constitution, and the will of the people, you have people who are supposed to be patriots who are really traitors and treasonous. And that legacy exists today. So it's not just that, the CIA did this terrible thing, all those years ago. They're still doing it. They were involved in exactly the same thing with Donald Trump the first time around with Russia collusion. The CIA was involved in that. The CIA's, John Brennan, former director of the CIA, was on television telling everyone that Trump was, a Russian spy and that Vladimir Putin was his handler. And, so did James Clapper, he was the DNI, Director of National Intelligence. So, remember when Trump went after the intelligence agencies and he was warned at the beginning of his first term, careful what you do because they're coming for you. Well, apparently, Kennedy wasn't the last president that the intelligence agencies sought to control and affect. So, yes, that has lasting consequences. But we still have soldiers alive today, some of them with their faces burned off, some of them with no legs, some with no legs, no arms, and half a face, who literally are living evidence, of the consequences of 9/11. And that's, that is also catastrophic in another way, a completely different way. But can America withstand this? Of course it can. You know what? To me, the most facile talking point of the Marxists and the left and all the rest is that every empire has its day. America's empire is over. No, the America is not founded on John F. Kennedy, Russell. It's founded on the Constitution of the United States and a covenant with God and the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights. It is a republic, not a democracy. And that is the strongest form of government this planet has ever seen. And it's not going to be shaken. It'll be shaken by this, but it's not going to collapse.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.